Hey, welcome to Devoted for the Week. We continue our walk through the Hall of Fame of Faith. So let's just pick right up. We got a lot to cover in a short period of time. So Hebrews 11, 5 and 6. We'll look at 5 first, then we'll look at 6. It was by faith that Enoch was taken up to heaven without dying. Really important there. He disappeared because God took him. That's taking it from Genesis. We'll look at here in just a second. For before he was taken up, he was known as a person who pleased God. Come on. I don't know what even more we could add to that except the fact that Enoch was known as someone who pleased God. How did he please God? Only by faith. And so we'll see that in verse 6. But before we do, let's look at this. Let's look at where Enoch first appears. It's in Genesis 5, 21 through 24. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. Anybody remember Methuselah? Oldest man in the Bible, 969 years old. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in close fellowship with God for another 300 years. And he had other sons and daughters. Enoch lived 365 years, walking in close fellowship with God. Someone say, close fellowship. What that means actually in the Greek, or in the Hebrew, is to accompany. So he accompanied God, God accompanied him. Kind of almost that sense of dual, they liked to be together. That's what kind of sense, that's the sense of it. Then one day he disappeared because God took him. A couple of things first. We've talked about this before. Not everyone likes this idea because it challenges some theology that I would consider to be not exactly biblical. We like to say, right, God took them home. However, whoever that is at the time of their death, right? Well, God took them home. I'm here to tell you, there are 3 people in the Bible that I can count who got took home. Enoch, Elijah, I'm waiting for you to fill in, and Jesus. Any guesses on what they all 3 had in common? They were all very much alive. In fact, they were probably more alive than they had been. And so I want to challenge us with that idea that God calls people home by death. That's not the point of this devoted, but it's probably a good point to consider. But moving on, we know that Enoch, Enoch had this testimony. So we see Enoch in Genesis. You know where we might see him? He's not mentioned. He's mentioned in Hebrews, but he's not mentioned in Revelation. But he might be. Anybody guess? Revelation 11, the 2 witnesses, right? And so right now, the odds-on favorite of being the 2 witnesses would be who? Elijah and Enoch. You throw Moses in there, Moses and Elijah, because Moses represents the law, Elijah represents the prophets. But again, a lot of people think it's going to be Elijah and Enoch because they're the 2 who were taken alive and they come back. Revelation 11, read it. But regardless of that, we know that Enoch walked closely with God and blessed him. How? How did he bless him? Verse 6. And it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. So just making sure, I meet so many folks who want answers. They want answers, right? And they want to know this about God and this about God and that about God. But that's not what this passage says. This verse says that without faith, it's impossible to please God. Faith is not answers. Faith is trusting in God even without answers. I know that's hard, but that's what pleases God. And it even says that we can't really even come to know him without faith. I equate it to this. Many of you heard me say this type of example. Imagine a house, front door, back door. The front door, wide open. Front door, unlocked, wide open. The back door, locked, barred. You can't get there. The back door, answers to all of our questions. The front door, faith. Where do a lot of people go? Right past the open front door to the back door. And they try and they try and they try to get to God once they figure things out. That's not what it says, right? Again, just one more time. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists, called faith, and he rewards those who sincerely seek him. My prayer for us is that we would be devoted to this Enoch-like faith. We would be devoted to this Enoch-like testimony, because from Genesis to maybe Revelation, certainly to Hebrews, we have a testimony from Enoch. It would be good that we would have such a faithful testimony. Amen? So I wonder if we would want to please God with our faith. Let's be devoted to please God by our faith. Amen? Be blessed and be devoted.